We're talking with Rick Green. He is the founder of Patriot Academy. For people who aren't familiar with your group, Rick, tell us about what Patriot Academy is.
Yeah, we're all about teaching people how to be better citizens. Study the Constitution, study their duty under the Constitution. We make it fun and exciting, not boring like most high school and government and economics classes that we all slept through. Instead, we make it entertaining and also give people a sense of responsibility. We're a little bit spoiled in our country right now. And for the last 2 years, I think people are waking up and saying, whoa, wait a minute, can government actually run my life this way? What can I do to push back? And so we equip people on how to do that. We got about 10,000 Constitution coaches out there hosting classes in homes and churches and libraries and everywhere else you can imagine. So patriotacademy.com if folks want to learn more.
Rick, to the U.S. Supreme Court and the hearings that happened last week, and then less than a week later, they shot down the private employer mandate. Talk about the constitutional questions that were raised here, especially when it comes to executive authority, authority of agencies under executive power to do certain things. What's the line that needs to be drawn here to ensure that we don't have executive fiat?
Yeah, Greg, you're asking exactly the right question. I wish they had spent more time on that specific question. They kind of came down to this basic decision that Congress had not given OSHA the authority. My argument, and the founding fathers certainly would have said, Congress does not have the authority to give OSHA the authority. This is way outside the federal government's purview. States, local governments, yeah, absolutely. They have a say in what's happening on public health and dealing with vaccines and pandemics, that sort of thing. But the feds had no authority here. They cannot create authority for themselves. Only the states can give that authority to the feds through a constitutional amendment. We've never done that. And Alito, Justice Alito did address that very quickly in his dissenting opinion on the medical healthcare worker mandate. But it was not discussed much at all by any of the justices in the other case. They did, go back and forth on, okay, what did Congress tell OSHA it could do 50 years ago when it created the act? And at least they drew a line there and said they did not give them that authority. The problem is they left the door open. They basically left it open to where Congress could give that power to OSHA. So that's a very dangerous place to be. That's not something that is good for the American people. It's certainly not good for our system. And it also opens the door for the president to come right back and say, well, okay, why don't we try this through Health and Human Services? Why don't we try this through another agency? So I'm very concerned about the door that's open here, but it is a temporary victory. And as you said at the top of the segment, what happens now at the Sixth Circuit? Do they come back and find another way to leave this mandate in place for employers? So we're not out of the woods, but it is a very good short-term victory.
Rick Green with us. He is founder of Patriot Academy. So what should people do out there? People hearing this, seeing this unfold, those who are impacted by this, should they keep their ear to the ground to hear of anything that's going on here and changing? And should they also, like in the state of Illinois where we're at right now, how should they be keeping up to date on what even state officials could possibly be doing, because they could implement their own rule?
Yeah, man, Greg, you've got a governor that's willing to essentially force people to stay in their homes over a virus that is 99.9% survivable. So thankfully, Omicron is making everybody realize the overreaction of government here and realize that it's mostly a cold for most people. But I think people have to push back. I don't think this is a time. I've never thought you should just say, well, the Supreme Court ruled, so it's settled. I don't think the founding fathers designed it that way. The Supreme Court should not have the final say. The people should have the final say. And for nearly 2 years now, the government has micromanaged us and tried to make all the decisions for us and gone way outside their authority. So in terms of long-term, what people should do, I think they need to get educated on the Constitution, and I think they need to get involved in movements to put the federal government back in its place. And frankly, in some places, like in your state, put governors back in their place. Even in my state, in Texas, I mean, governors went way outside their authority. We were no longer a constitutional republic. We became dictatorships all over this nation. And the only way you stop that and prevent that from happening again is for we, the people, to get educated, start paying attention to who you're electing, start asking them the exact same questions you're asking me this morning, and then get involved in some movements to do some constitutional amendments like Convention of States to overrule the federal government like we did with the 11th Amendment years ago.
Rick, when it comes to constitutional knowledge, what are some of the most important things that people don't know that they should know about their rights here in this constitutional republic?
Man, two words we need to get back to: authority and jurisdiction. Too often, I was a state rep years ago, and people would often say, "Oh, if it's a good idea, we need to do it," or "These people need help, we need to do it." Instead of asking the first question, "Do I have authority to even consider this issue?" And then ask the question, "Is it a good idea to pass this bill?" We should ask that at the federal level, the state level, the local level. We don't do that anymore. Government is not the end all be all. It doesn't have unlimited jurisdiction. And so we need to start learning constitutionally, what can the federal government do? There's only 17 enumerated powers in the Constitution for the federal government. And in this case, it was so egregious during the hearing that you had United States Supreme Court justices actually saying, "Well, if the states can do it, why can't the feds do it?" Well, Justice, because the Constitution is extremely clear and the 10th Amendment makes it very clear, the feds can only do specifically what's listed in the Constitution. Everything else is left to the states and the people. And we've forgotten those things. And there's a reason to know those things. The feds are not going to do education or healthcare or any of those things as well as your local government or your state government or the people closest to you. You don't want the federal government screwing up everything. They've messed healthcare up so bad, and now this mandate on 10 million Americans, it's only going to make healthcare worse. It's pushing people out of healthcare that are good people that served us during COVID before there was a vaccine. It's just a great example of why we all need to know what the proper role of government is, and then accept the responsibility to hold government accountable to that proper role and not let it get outside of those jurisdictions.
Well, and as you talked about with the questions of authority and jurisdiction, I mean, we saw at the beginning of COVID some pretty remarkable things, including government telling people that they couldn't go to church, including government telling
Yeah.
people they couldn't go to work. Schools were closed. Businesses were, big box stores were allowed to stay open. The small mom and pop shops were closed here in Illinois. And the ongoing now 22 months of executive orders from our Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and the state legislature not really doing much about it. So kind of
That's right.
fascinating to see all this play out. Rick, if people want more information about Patriot Academy, how can they find it?
You bet, man. PatriotAcademy.com. It's time to turn this thing around. It's been absolutely the worst public policy decisions in the history of mankind. It's cost millions and millions of jobs. It's cost hundreds of thousands of lives because of government making bad decisions here and getting in outside their lane, basically getting into our personal lane of our own personal decisions. So go to PatriotAcademy.com, learn today, and let's restore liberty in this country.
Rick, appreciate it, and maybe we talk again soon, all right?
You bet, Greg. Have a good one, man.
It's the WMAY morning news feed now, 721, and let's take a look at that.